The Reverie, or if you're a nasty, nasty person, the Leverie, is upon us, but we see absolutely none of it. I thought that would be the whole arc, but instead it's mostly just setups with no payoffs and some brain-exploding reveals. With only 12 episodes, you may think this arc doesn't deserve its own video, but let's not forget the glory that was post-Ennis Lobby. For those of you just joining us, I'm Denny, and this is the series where I give my first impressions on the One Piece anime as a first-time viewer. Although I was a bit disappointed with how this arc progressed, I am excited to rant and ramble through my barely coherent thoughts and conspiracies. So, let's sail on. Much like the arc itself, this video is going to be a bit all over the place. Firstly, let's start with the elephant in the room, the anime adaptation itself. Big yikes did watching this drive me nuts. There were some moments in Whole Cake Island that I thought were a little rough. Particularly, the Luffy vs. Sanji two-parter was an offense against all mankind, but then the Reverie came in guns blazing to be crowned the arc with the most filler possible. Behold, your kingdom of flashbacks. I'd say about 2/3 of all 12 episodes were flashbacks, and I mean, I do get why to some extent. If you're watching this show week to week, as crazy as it sounds, you might not have even been born when Alabasta wrapped up. But most everything else, all the Dressrosa flashbacks, were just a big middle finger, and it was exhausting. Luckily, I could just fast forward through all that stuff because I'm watching this years later, but I can't imagine watching these when they premiered and being at all satisfied with the long built up Reverie. But I will say, we do finally get to see the Luffy stabbing himself in the eye scene get adapted into the anime. Only took 878 episodes to adapt the first scene of the manga, but that's cool. Before checking in on the other players at the Reverie, let's focus on our scrappy pirates who barely made it out of Whole Cake Island. The trek to Wano is officially underway, and as if screaming in our faces that extreme power is gonna be needed for the coming fight, the story gives us 2 new upgrades. First up, Sanji's got a raid suit. It's assumed Niji slipped it in Luffy's pocket, but I hope it's a design unique to Sanji rather than just Niji's suit. Sanji doesn't want it, and he doesn't want to ever hear the words Germa or Vinsmoke again, but I'm just as excited as Luffy and Chopper. I want to see him shoot lasers. Secondly, Nami has got Zeus living in her baton. I was wondering what happened to that floating cotton candy cutie, and now I know he actually turned traitor. He's part of Big Mom's soul, so I'm not sure he can be 100% trusted, but for now at least, it's just as Nami says. She's got herself one powerful servant. Now, onto the cuckoo news. There have been some bounty changes since word of what went down in Whole Cake Island spread. For once, Sanji's bounty has shot up to be above Zoro's. He celebrates this victory, but I love how of all the wanted posters, Sanji's always gives us just a bit more to work with. He realizes his name's been updated to Vinsmoke Sanji, which really pisses him off. Luffy is also quite upset, seeing that his bounty has dropped from 500 million to 150 million. Aw shucks, that stinks, man. Hey, you'll get 'em next time, sport. It's 1.5 billion, you dolt! Not only that, but the newspaper declares Luffy the 5th Emperor of the Sea. I'd say that puts a target on his back, but it's already been there. This was a really cool moment for our rubber captain, but at the same time, I think the introduction of Morgans during Whole Cake Island adds a whole new layer to these newspaper updates. Now that we know the man behind the pages, it's impossible to ignore that he has his own motivations. He published this story about Luffy knowing that it would shake the world. He especially knew that it would both piss off and embarrass Big Mom, but he did it anyway. It's interesting that he doesn't seem to care. Where is Morgans based? Does he have someone protecting him? What part does he have to play in the larger story? I don't think we've seen the last of that squawking bird boy. Now, let's talk about them baddies, the Marines. First up, I love the new Marineford design. The big dumb seagull wings are so perfect. I've always appreciated how Oda isn't afraid to make even the antagonists of the series silly. No one is ever taken too seriously. There's always something wacky about everything. This design for the villain's new HQ is just perfect. It's instantly iconic, and I can't stress enough how much I love it. Next up, Captain Kobe. This is our first look at post-time skip Kobe, and I was both really happy with what we saw but also a bit disappointing. It's awesome that he's this renowned hero who Kiros and the others recognize. He's clearly come a long way with his hockey, and I feel proud of the lowly Troy boy for following his dreams this far. On the other hand, this does crush my completely unfounded and selfish desires to see Kobe as more of a threat. I honestly was holding out hope that during the time skip, Kobe had gotten so powerful that he was the secret admiral the show has been hiding this whole time. I know it doesn't make any sense, and it's completely ridiculous, but this does deflate my hopes for a Luffy versus Kobe rematch. At the same time, that's never really been the role that Kobe serves, and it's clear in this arc that Kobe doesn't want to interfere with Luffy's dreams. So I guess this probably is better. The fanboy in me just got a little carried away thinking about all the possibilities. Speaking of the admirals, oh boy, do we get some vague nonsense about them that somehow still manages to be incredibly exciting. Even though Fujitora and Sakazuki are beefing, Fujitora decided to come to the Reverie anyway, stating that it isn't technically a marine base, so Sakazuki can suck it. This is where the mystery admiral comes into place, who remains shrouded in shadow throughout. He gets to talking with Fujitora, and it's clear that both of these men really have no respect for Sakazuki's command, which I found interesting. We didn't see much interaction between the admirals and Sengoku back when he was fleet admiral, but he did seem to garner more respect from his men than Sakazuki does. Anyway, Fujitora states that he went to meet with Vegapunk after Dressrosa, which is interesting enough, but then declares that after that meeting, he's confident the world can go on without the warlord system. Obviously, Fujitora wanted to abolish the warlords, but now that Vegapunk's being brought into this, that makes me think something even wilder is gonna replace the warlords. Will it just be pacifistas? I don't think so. It feels a little too simple, and I don't think that would really be satisfying. So, who knows? That Vegapunk remains a mystery. Also, the other secret admiral guy says he hasn't eaten in over 3 years. What the hell? Who is he, and where did he come from? On the flip side, the Revolutionary Army does properly introduce us to some of their more important players, and I really appreciated this. Frankly, up to this point, the Revolution has felt pretty bland compared to the other wacky, colorful organizations of this world. The introduction of the captains made me like the Revolutionary Army a lot more right away. They're so over the top with fantastic designs and unique personalities that I really enjoyed their brief introduction. Also, Betty might just be my new favorite side character. Her attitude, ability, and design are just so instantly iconic and fit both into the larger world, but also into her immediate organization so perfectly. Plus, she's the leader of the Eastern Forces. Assuming that means the East Blue, she could be repping our home sea. Go East Blue! You East rule! Stupid. That was dumb. Also, seeing the Revolution move their base from the bland Baltigo to now meet up with Ivan on the Kamabaka Kingdom just adds so much color and personality to everything. Pretty much, this arc helped to bring the Revolution into the One Piece world proper, rather than continuing to be this strange, isolated thing, and I really enjoyed how that was done. One last thing before getting into the Reverie. We see the fallout from Luffy being declared the 5th Emperor. Big Mom is coming to Wano. I knew her story wasn't over, but I didn't expect such an immediate follow-up. She calls up Kaido, who is equally pissed at Luffy's progression, and it's clear that these two emperors have some history, as Big Mom holds a favor she did for Kaido years ago over his head. I can't tell if these two are gonna fight, or team up, or do both, but two emperors in one place is not good. We also find out, thanks to Garp, that he and those two emperors are connected to something called rocks, which is also related to how Garp came to be known as a naval hero. Garp tells us that about 40 years ago, the sea was Big Mom and Kaido's, before Roger became king. Roger hasn't been around for a long time though, so I wonder why these two never reclaimed the sea for themselves. How does Whitebeard fit into all that? And what's the deal with Shanks? Of all the powerhouse rulers of the sea, he does feel the most out of place. Did he rise to power to help Whitebeard keep order over the Grand Line and to counteract Big Mom and Kaido? The history here is both becoming clearer and more complicated, and I'm dying to get any solid info on what happened in the last few decades, let alone centuries. But now, let's discuss the meeting of the minds that we've all been waiting for, After nearly 900 episodes, fan favorite characters from across the series will interact for the first time. First up, you know him, you love him, it's Stelly! This dumb as a dumpster dude is set up as both a real bad guy and a big ass who no one takes seriously. It's heavily hinted that he killed the prior king and queen of the Goa Kingdom to ascend to the throne. But this guy might as well be slipping on a banana peel or being crushed by a falling piano in every scene he's in. I was actually looking forward to seeing Stelly again when he was hinted at in the end of Zoe. I thought he could be an interesting wrench to throw into this summit. But after seeing him, I really could have done without this clown. No more teasing you. The meeting of the three princesses was really cute. Vivi, Shirahoshi, and Rebecca all bond over their shared experiences with the Straw Hat Pirates in a lovely scene of fangirl adoration. Then, everyone else who knows the Straw Hats shows up too. We got Koreha and Dalton, Sai and Leo, Wapol, Mancherry, Viola, the Merman Princesses, Igaram, Wapol's gold-digging wife. Everyone's here, and this team felt like a reward for fans who have stuck with the story for so long. It's not a groundbreaking scene, and if I'm being honest, I wish a little more came from it, but it was wholesome and nostalgic in the best way. But the familiar faces don't stop coming. Shirahoshi is seized by Charlos, whose obsession with enslaving mermaids doesn't seem to have waned in the last 2 years. This celestial dragon's giddy dance as he kidnaps a princess before everyone's eyes is enough to make anyone blood red mad, but CP0 shows up to hold back the royalty. That's right, baby, it's Lucci, Kaku, Stussy, and Tall Guy. Honestly, it's refreshing to see that Lucci is still a complete bloodthirsty creep. Don't ever change, pussycat. King Neptune is about to throw away decades of political maneuvering on the part of Queen Otahime to save his daughter, but Charlos gets clobbered again. God, does this series know what I want? The clobberer in question is the celestial dragon from the Fishman Island flashback. Turns out, he's a Don Quixote, and he kneels before Neptune, telling him he'll do anything to help his people. Apparently, his time with Otahime really changed his worldview, and this was a great thing to see as an audience. If the story is approaching its endgame, then the Celestial Dragon Society cannot be allowed to go on like this by the end of the series. It's time to start showing that there are some decent folk among them, so when their Holy Land eventually gets decimated, we don't feel they have to go with it. Examples of Celestial Dragon kindness shows that these are people who are not beyond hope. Although, the world government won't go down without a fight, and we see plenty of examples of their power and cruelty lurking in the background throughout this arc. The first notable example was the slave-driven treadmill path, the first sign that we had truly arrived in Mary Joa. Then, we are taken to the center of the world through the ever-delightful point-of-view character, Stelly. At the center of the world sits the empty throne, a symbol that all are equal in the world government and no dictator rules over them. This was a cool idea, but I knew someone would be sitting in that throne by the end of this arc, and I knew it would be Stelly. Also, we get some solid info on the 5 Elders. In my second video on Whole Cake Island, I made some claims about the 5 Elders possibly being victims of Mother Carmel that are now proven entirely wrong. Turns out they're just the 5 highest ranking celestial dragons, whatever that means. I'm not sure if they are the oldest dudes in this land or what, but they have a very important meeting to attend before the Reverie. Shanks is here. He's here! Shanks! Dude, what the hell is going on here? They seem to be on pretty familiar and cordial terms. This was the second biggest shock of the arc. Shanks has obviously been a towering figure throughout the whole series, but who is he? What's going on here? He shows up to speak to them about a certain pirate. My first instinct is that he's here to talk about Luffy. But if we're going with the Reverie being an echo of post-Enies Lobby, then I actually think he's here to talk about Blackbeard. I can't imagine Shanks showing up and being like, "Hey dudes, don't attack Luffy, that's my boy." I don't think Shanks can tell the world government what to do, but I think he could redirect their fire toward a different target. While I'm hypothesizing, let me get real wild with it. Maybe Shanks is a celestial dragon too. I have no proof of this, but the way we've seen him regarded by Sengoku and now the 5 Elders means there's more to Shanks than meets the eye, and I don't think we've ever been told anything about him before he joined Roger. But hey, that's just a theory. A really bad Shanks theory. Oh, also, there's a giant frozen straw hat. What the hell is going on? What on earth could this possibly mean? For real, I have no idea what to think, but before this reveal, we see Dofi being insane and impelled down, which frames this around being the secret he is known that allowed him to run wild. Side note, I really enjoy Dofi as this kooky prisoner character. I think it fits him so well. But what about that hat? It's huge! So just let me think this through. There are a number of possibilities here, and I'm sure everyone I'm about to present is completely wrong. 1. The most obvious possibility is that this hat belonged to a giant in the past. It's simply a fashion statement that important people throughout the history of this world gravitate toward. 2. Somehow, this hat is the original source for the Roger Shanks Luffy hat, like it's the great big mama hat, and there's something special about that darn straw. 3. Imu is clearly making some kind of connection between Luffy and this hat, which means that it likely belonged to an enemy of the world government in the past, and for some reason, he can't destroy it. But why keep it? It looks like it's been there for a long time. Why have it preserved and hidden away? How many people know about this hat? Honestly, it's hurting my brain to keep thinking about this complete wildness. Now that the speculation has begun to unravel me, let's talk about Imu. I guess this is him. This is the true ruler of this world. He is the man who sits in the empty throne, and the 5 elders kneel before him. He's completely shrouded in darkness, so I have no idea what he even looks like, but from where I stand right now, it appears that Imu is the ultimate baddie, and fuck it, I think he's immortal. Okay? I have no reason to think that, but I'm going crazy with it, so why not? It seems like he's a completely hidden figure that only the 5 elders know about, and they ask him what more he wants erased from history. Perhaps Imu is responsible for the Void Century. Maybe there's even more that's been erased that we don't even know about. Who the hell could this guy be? I think at the very least, we get an idea about what Imu is concerned about. All alone, we see that he's gone psycho mode on a couple of photos. He's cut up images of Luffy, Blackbeard, and Shirahoshi, notably leaving a blade through Shirahoshi's, which is always a good sign. Then he held up an image of Vivi. Aren't those 4 people a very interesting bunch? 1 is an ancient weapon, 2 are Emperors of the Sea with the name D, and the other is a descendant of the 20 founding families. Vivi is the most curious of all these people. Sure, she's got that sweet blood, but what threat could she pose? Don't you go telling me that Vivi is also an ancient weapon. So, we don't hear a thing Imu says, but it's pretty clear that recent events around the world have got his eyes set on some kind of pending threat to his world order. What exactly that threat is, or what he'll do about it, can only be solved by continuing down the Grand Line. This arc leaves off with a number of loose threads. In fact, I'd say this entire arc is just one massive unresolved plot that I assume we'll be coming back to at the end of Wano. We see Sabo creeping through the palace until he comes upon Kuma. This poor man is now a rent-a-slave being passed around by the Celestial Dragons. Sabo gets real pissed, but we also see Jewelry Bonnie of all people sneaking around, and she appears to have some tearful connection with Kuma as well. What is it with this creep, and why is she never with her crew? Unanswered. Then, after all this, the Reverie finally begins. Hamburger is the chairman of this year's summit, and I actually quite like that. He's a fun new character, and I'm not biased at all. Once the meeting starts, the arc ends. So I contend this arc should not be called the Reverie arc at all, because it's pretty misleading, and frankly, I was bothered that no reverying went down. This is the pre-Reverie arc, and I will only be acknowledging it as such from now until the end of days. All set up, no payoff, no Reverie. Damn. Wano, Wano, Wano. I'm finally starting Wano. It has been a long time coming, and I'm extremely excited. Based on the vibes I've been getting, this seems like an extremely important arc, and I've got my fingers crossed that I'll finally get some answers and an excellent story. My coverage of that begins in 2 weeks, so I hope you'll join me there. I want to take some time to thank my awesome patrons who support the channel and make this madness possible. If you'd like to join them, you'll unlock access to some exclusive perks, including getting access to my videos days early. And thank you, the loons still watching this far into the video. Your insanity fuels my love. If you wouldn't mind dropping a like, I'd really appreciate that. Now, until the next time, I'll shut up.